Officer Triplett, first of all, thank you so much for coming today and coming to speak to our Rayburn students specifically. We want to get to know a little bit about you first. Where are you from originally, and how long have you been in law enforcement?
I'm originally born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I've been in Houston, Texas, and been with the Houston Police Department for about 2.5 years now.
Okay. So, as you know, this week is Red Ribbon Week nationally, across the country, and especially here at Rayburn. Why is speaking to young people about drugs and alcohol such a passion for you?
Well, I believe talking to our youth about the drugs and about alcohol is very important. Me growing up, I had seen a lot of my friends and a lot of my family affected by alcohol abuse and by narcotics. And like from such a young age, from some of my cousins being 14 years old, starting to use hard drugs, and some of my families and friends. Also, just by being a police officer, coming out there on the street, seeing what alcohol can do and the drug abuse can do to some of these young children, is a big thing. So my thing is, if I could actually get out there and talk to some people and probably prevent one or two, it can lead to helping others from y'all actually telling y'all friends and y'all family.
Well, I appreciate that, because right now we're talking to roughly 2,700 students here on campus. And drugs and alcohol is something that a lot of our students are familiar with in their own lives or through their friends, but not a lot of people will talk about it. What is one thing that you would say that maybe they're not aware of when it comes to the dangers of drugs and alcohol?
Well, one of the big things, like especially for our youth, that they first start to interact with is marijuana. And a lot of kids think like, oh, it's just marijuana, I could quit whenever I want to quit. I can smoke it, it makes me feel this type of way, it makes me feel good. But one of the main things is once people start interacting with these drugs, first off, you don't actually know what's actually inside of these drugs. So it only takes one time for you to get your drugs or your marijuana or whatever you're trying to input into your body to be laced, and it goes from, oh, it's a natural thing, to having something that was manufactured on the streets, and it actually gets you even hooked even harder. Some of the things I've seen was I went to a scene once and a guy thought he smoked some marijuana, but it was laced with some PCP. And that made him go into a whole different level, and he couldn't control his body. He couldn't control his mind. He couldn't control himself overall, and did not know what he was doing until we got him to the hospital. He didn't know where he was at. He kind of just looked at us and was like, I hit the wrong cigarette. And with that, it could have caused extra things on that portion.
One of the things that's getting a lot of attention these days is the opioid crisis. We've heard the president talk about it. We've heard different agencies talk about it. Can you explain to our students who may not understand the word opioid, how they would maybe come into contact or hear those drugs, what they're called to them?
Well, when it comes down to opioids, a lot of people thinking that it's officially crack cocaine, doing all those hard drugs, but an opioid could even include medicine coming out your mother or father's drug cabinet. So from Vicodin to all those prescription medications can be considered opioid if it's not prescribed to you. So a lot of kids think, like I said, they go, oh, I'm trying to get this quick high, but by ingesting those pills into your body, or by ingesting those, you can become hooked. And you might not think it after the first time, but then the first time is going to lead to a second time. The second time is going to lead to a fifth time. And all of a sudden, your body is just dependent on these things that it's going to, like I said, your body is naturally dependent on you to take a Vicodin, take a drug that's not prescribed to you. And that's one of the things where it starts.
One of the things that I think that you have a unique perspective on is obviously the crime. How many of the crimes that you see on a day-to-day basis would you say involve poor choices or choices made under the influence of drugs or alcohol abuse?
A lot of them. I can't say all of them, but a lot of people I came in contact with either were on drugs or had drugs on their body. So it takes away that your normal way of thinking, because once those drugs enter your body, it's taken away from you as a person.
Speaking of the drugs and the consequences, can you give us just, I know there's a lot of different consequences for different kinds of drugs, but what are the basic consequences that students or young people could see for things like drug offenses, alcohol-related offenses, court-type consequences?
So as of right now, if you get caught with over a certain amount, for the city of Houston, if you get caught with a certain amount of marijuana, you will be issued, it's a misdemeanor for the first time. Second time, you might get another misdemeanor. After that third time, you're going to start going into a felony, which is going to affect you big time. It could affect you job-wise. It could affect you, if you thought about with marijuana, getting caught with marijuana, that could affect you trying to join the military. Then once if you get caught with a harder drug such as cocaine or any of those types of drugs, you automatically, no matter how big the size of it, is a felony. And once that thing is on your record, it's hard for you to come back from. It's just hard. So you put yourself into a situation where you might have all these things going for yourselves, and then you have this felony for drugs,
Right.
and now that's going to take away from the jobs you can get, which is going to take away from the money you can earn, which is going to take away from you getting the things that you want.
Mr. Triplett, Officer Triplett, we appreciate you taking the time to come speak to our students. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Right.